afternoon, good evening, everybody. Can I just check that you can all hear me okay? Can you type into the chat box if you can hear and see me and Joe? Excellent. Good evening, Francis. Excellent, lovely. So as we always do, can you let us know where you are and where you are in the world? So I've already looked at the map. I can see we have some people in China, in Indonesia, from the Philippines. Okay, Bangkok. All right. So just let us know how you're doing. Super's there. Okay, Shanghai. From Pattaya, by the beach. Hello from Myanmar. Thank you very much for attending from Myanmar. Thank you for attending from Indonesia as well. Lovely. Okay. So you can all hear us now. Can you let me know, just maybe put in the chat box as well, what level are you teaching? Are you teaching pre-primary, primary, secondary, adults? What kind of level are you teaching? Good, good. So we got some primary teachers, junior high, all the levels, Rafi, good. Lots of experience for you if you're teaching all the levels. High school as well, good, all right. Primary and secondary, lovely job. Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming to today's session. This is the second session, and I'm your host today. My name is Del Spafford. I work for Macmillan Education as a teacher trainer and as an academic consultant. Did any of you lovely people attend the session yesterday? Were you here yesterday? Lovely, Anna. Thank you very much. And Francis. Good. So you listened my face yesterday. So welcome again to the second of our spring webinars. John, of course. You can see John in the chat box. He was there yesterday as well, of course. So today is the second of our spring webinars, all about advancing learning and advancing attitudes, skills, and knowledge. So let me just click it on one slide. So I work for Macmillan Education, as I mentioned, and at Macmillan Education, for those who don't know us, we're a publishing company, and we've been helping and working with teachers for over 170 years, publishing materials to help people in education, workplace, and life. Probably our most famous publication from way back in the days, we published Alice in Wonderland, which I'm sure you've all read and enjoyed. We work in three different areas, mainly. We work in language learning, we work in curriculum, and we work in international higher education. So language learning is at ELT, is probably what most of you are working in at the moment. And then curriculum, working with schools who may be teaching other subjects as well as English, which Jo has got lots of experience with, having looked at her bio. And we work with higher education and research as well. Today's session, as you can see, is session number 2. And where we have 4 sessions for you in the next 2 weeks. We've run one session yesterday, as I mentioned. Today is the second session. And we also have a session next week on Wednesday with Nick Bear, who's an author of our Share It series, and one with Rona Snelling, which is on Thursday, who's an author of our Speak Your Mind series. And on the Thursday session, there will be a Q&A with myself as well. So please, if you haven't registered for these sessions, go to the Macmillan English website or to the links that you can see there with the QR codes, and I'm sure Daisy will pop them in the chat box as well for you to register for those sessions as well. You will receive a certificate. We know these are very important for you to show your accountability, to show that you've been to these sessions, to show that you're developing your professional skills. So please be patient when you receive the certificate, or when receiving the certificate, because it may go to your spam folder and it might take a few days after the session to get there, but you will get a certificate from today's session signed by our lovely author Joe and John, the professional development manager at Macmillan Education. So let's talk a little bit about today's session. So today's session, we're very, very privileged and lucky to have Joe Ramsden here with us. Joe is, well, I'll let Joe tell us about her. So maybe I could ask you some questions, Joe, while you're there. So Joe, where are you based at now? Where are you today?
I'm based in Spain, so it's 12 o'clock, midday, Spanish time. So I've been here for many years.
Right. And you work at a school in Spain, right? You're still teaching and working every day? Yeah.
Yes. I work in a Spanish primary school. I'm teaching 5 to 7 year olds. So I'm with year 1 and year 2. I've also got experience in infants. We're actually on spring break, Easter holiday at the moment, which is very nice.
Oh, lovely. And what are you planning to do? Can you get away? Can you do anything? Maybe have a staycation?
No. We're all locked in, but I'm very lucky to be at the coast. So they've closed the perimeter of the area that we're in, just in case we're still.
So what are you doing to keep yourself busy?
Well, I'm very lucky that I'm close to the coast, so I can go for walks. I go hiking. I'm a keen paddle tennis player, so I can do all of these things, and a bit of work preparation. There's always things to keep.
There's always stuff, isn't there? Yeah.
Give webinars.
Absolutely, yeah. We're very grateful for that today. So yeah, Jo is a very experienced author. She's the author of Gimme 5, and I believe you're using Gimme 5 as well, actually, right?
I am. I'm teaching year 2, so I'm using level 2 at the moment. I'm using Gimme 5 level 2. I used level 1 last year, and I'm very happy with it, of course. You'll be able to see some examples from my tiny people later on.
I think it's quite rare sometimes, isn't it, to find somebody who's actually using the materials every day and who's written the materials as well. So I think we're very lucky to have you with us today to share not just your experience of writing it, but actually using it in the classroom as well. So anyway, I will stop talking and I will pass the microphone and the camera over to you to continue the session. So good luck and thank you very much again for your time today.
Thanks very much. Well, it is lovely to be here today, and I'm very excited to be talking to Asia, which is a whole new area for me. So let's get going. I do teach 5 to 7 year olds, as I just mentioned, not only English, but I also teach science. So we have a bilingual project. So I'm using CLIL with my children. We're actually face to face. We're back in the classroom, but we do have groups of 5 children that stay at home every day. So we're enabling social distance. I believe that some of you are still teaching remotely. Do you want to just type through if you're face to face or if you're teaching remotely? I will be talking about ways of adapting the activities, yes, remotely. I'll be looking at ways of adapting the activities to in order to take that into consideration. It is great to be back in school, but it's tricky because we've got to take lots of things into consideration. Everyone is wearing masks, and the children are so young that sometimes it's difficult to know if they can see our facial expressions. So, I'll be looking at activities that we can do in class once we all get back into class, and also how to adapt them to teaching remotely. Today, I'll be talking about developing literacy skills with early primary children, sort of years 1 to year 4, with different activities which will be applicable across the board. Literacy texts can provide an excellent framework within which to develop not just language skills, but also a range of attitudes, social and communicative skills and knowledge, including the ability to think critically, work together as a team, and to build on their knowledge of different types of texts. In this session today, we'll explore positive strategies and demonstrate practical ideas to motivate students through the use of real-world texts to extend our students' learning beyond the walls of the classroom. We're going to start by looking at what literacy is and discussing a sample of different text types that we can use in the classroom. Then we'll look at ways that we can use these genres to enhance our pupils' learning and improve not only their reading skills, but with guidance, encourage them to start to produce their own texts. So let's start off with a key question. Over to you. What is literacy? If I say the word literacy, what does that conjure up for you? You can type through your ideas into the chat box. What's literacy all about? What does that make you think of? It might bring into mind a favorite book, learning, reading and writing. Yes, it might be a text that you've worked on in class. It might be Alice in Wonderland, as Del mentioned at the beginning. I wasn't aware of that, so learning something new every day. You might think of the reading skill or the writing skill. And the ability to communicate, yes, as well. So not just reading and writing, but also communicating. Yes, so let's have a look what we've got here. The simplest definition of literacy is the ability to read and write. But in fact, it does encompass the 4 skills of language learning: speaking and listening, as well as reading and writing. So literacy is so much more than just reading books. The use of real-world fiction and non-fiction text is a key factor in motivating children towards becoming confident readers and writers. And the use of different text types exposes learners to a variety of genres and formats, building on their knowledge in this area. In addition to this, through the use of real-world text, we can expose children to a wide range of other skills, some of which you've mentioned here: communication, collaboration, ways of thinking, creativity, decision-making, teamwork, and even digital skills. So before we start and get down to the nitty-gritty, let's start off with a quiz to test your own knowledge of different text types. You'll see an example and 3 different options. So have a look, read the text type and type through into the chat box. What type of text do you think this is? Add the eggs and stir well. You can type through the letter, you can type through the type. Everybody's gone for C. So a nice easy one to start off. It is in fact C, a recipe. Great. Let's try another one. What type of text is this? We've got Capricorn. Friday could be an important day for your love life. A, B or C? Everybody's going with B. Fantastic. So it is in fact B, a horoscope. And one more, because you're very good at this. Try it today, it really works. Special offer for this week only. What do you think this one is? Again, perfect. So 10 out of 10, 100%. It's an advert. Good. So these are just a few of the different types of text that can motivate our students. And we can see that each one uses specific language, vocabulary, different structures, or even different types of punctuation that make them easy to identify. This brings us to another key question. Why should we use different genres in our classrooms? Now, I haven't asked you, are you using different genres yourselves? What type of genres do you use? What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea? Type your answers through once again into the chat box. We're probably all using stories from our textbooks, so covering stories and text to entertain. Non-fiction, yes. Non-fiction And our adventure stories, great. All of these things can engage our students and to bring in variety, fantastic. We perhaps cover fairy tales as well, films and songs. Oh, TED Talks, fantastic. All of these things can be really motivating for our students. Great. So by using different literacy genres in the classroom, we can bring in more variety, as you've said, May has said here, let's have more variety in our classroom. They can bring in more variety to our lessons, creating an inviting environment in which our children and our students can learn. We can provide good models of varied visual text using genres that our students are already familiar with, perhaps even in their own language. We can reflect our pupils' different interests by including non-fiction as well as fiction. Some of you have mentioned that you use non-fiction. We can tap into the things that our pupils are interested in through this. And giving them the opportunity to create their own texts promotes confidence, creativity, and the desire to succeed. Pupils start to write their own texts following guidelines, and each text is different. There's plenty of opportunity for pair work and collaborative work. This is provided as pupils discuss their ideas together before writing, and then they can check that they've correctly completed each task using criteria so that they can start to self-evaluate as well. Opportunity is provided for building on a variety of skills, particularly ways of working, communication, collaboration and teamwork, and ways of thinking, critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and learning to learn. So let's think about different genres that we might use. Starting off with our youngest learners, with our 5 to 6 year olds, level 1 learners, what type of texts, what type of genres do you think this age group would be familiar with? Fairy tales. Yes. So there are different types of stories. Yes. Think about ones that you do in the classroom, ones that they might learn at home. They'll be reading picture books. They'll probably be reading with a parent, different songs. Yes, and even in their own language, in their language classes. Oh, postcard. Oh, yes, that's on my list as well. So, yes, different types of anything with illustrations, pictures. We've got different postcards, anything that's visual. Yes, anything that includes photos and flashcards and cartoons as well. So let's have a look. This is the and rhymes. Yes, great. So this is the list that comes from Give Me 5 level 1. You can see that we have got the postcard as well that you've mentioned. We've got birthday cards. This type of texts that are familiar are a great place to start with. They're short, they're simple, they've got a clear format, and there's a structure that pupils can replicate in their own writing. So having a look at these, I can see that somebody's mentioned a quiz. We've got a quiz later on. Have you used any of these? Have you created any, perhaps maybe cards, birthday card, Christmas card, Valentine's card, maybe even a lunch menu, posters, fables? Yes, yeah. So these type of texts are great for this age group. What about for older children? Obviously, we can use some of these text types. Again, we can go into more detail, we can add more complexity, but older children will have been exposed to more text types. At the beginning, I saw that some of you are working in secondary, some of you are working across all age groups. Yes, so our older children will have read news articles, they'll be familiar with quizzes, and we can use more complex, different types of text with them. So let's have a look at some genres that we could use with older children. We could move on from our lunch menu to a recipe. We can look at a diary entry, starting off about writing about themselves, and then moving on from that to an autobiography, and then even to a biography, writing about someone else. So let's have a look in more detail about some of the different text types that we can introduce to our learners. Starting off with a poem. A poem can be a really useful tool in the classroom. We can often find a poem that relates to the topic that we are learning, either in English or even in science if we're working with CLIL. Poems are generally short and children can learn to say them and act them out in the classroom. In Give Me 5 Level 2, there's an action poem called Ball. So first of all, what type of balls do you think will appear in the poem? Over to you, type through your ideas. What do you think? Do you think any of these balls will be in the poem? Or maybe different types of balls? Different sports balls? What about there's a basketball there? Do you think that's going to be in? A football? Yeah, oh, maybe some Pokeballs. That would be a good idea. Very topical. So for all of them, maybe all of them. So, oh, the beach ball, basketball. So it's a good idea to use prediction before we start to read, which is it's a really good strategy. Students can anticipate the content of the text based on their prior knowledge. The title and the illustrations will give them some information as well to help them. Now, what about actions? It's a sports poem. We've got different balls. How would we use them? What type of actions do you think might appear in this poem? We've said football. What can we do with our football? We could play. We can shoot, kick. Yes, kick the football, throw it. Oh, dribble. Good one. We can catch it. We can pitch it. So again, elicit all of these actions from our class, and we can write them all up somewhere so that they can see them, and then let's read the poem and see which one. Buy the ball first. Yes, go to the shops, spend your money, buy yourself a great ball. So here's the poem. If students are reading the text on paper, it's a good idea to play the audio as well for them to listen to at the same time. Research shows that students' reading comprehension lags behind their oral comprehension until they reach middle school. So there's both things going on at the same time. And then we would check the predictions by looking at the text. Were you right? So we've got the football is there, the basketball is there. Unfortunately, the Pokeball was not in this poem, but it was a good idea. So we'll just park that to one side. What about the actions? We've got kick, you said that. We've got throw, someone said that. And I think someone also said catch. You suggested hit, we've got toss, we've got shoot. Again, these were great ideas. They're not in the poem, but that doesn't mean that they're not good ideas. So we'll use them later on. So all of this discussion can go on with our pupils. The next step will be to act out that poem. Performance of a poem helps to increase focus and concentration. The actions help students to recall the words. In addition, if we can elicit the actions from students themselves, that aids their memory. So even if you're working remotely, you can ask them to suggest and perform actions with the cameras on, and then we can act out the poem all together. We won't be doing that today, but that's something that you can do either in class or remotely. After reading and acting out the poem, pupils can then sequence to check comprehension. And then going back to the model, we can write a collective class poem. This builds confidence as the class brainstorms their ideas together. We can use all of those ideas that were suggested at the beginning. Buy the ball, toss the ball, dribble, we've got shoot. We had other balls. Bring them all in and use them in that collective class poem, and then read it together, act it out. The pupils will identify with it as something that belongs to them, that they've all created, and it's going to give them the confidence to go ahead and write their own poem. You can see that in the activity, there are word pools that are given for support. The words are separated out. We've got our verbs, we've got our adjectives, different types of balls. Pupils can go through that and write a poem on their own. So the ball poem, that's an action poem, but it's only one of many different types of poem that we could use in the classroom. Over to you again. What other types of poem do you think we could use? I'm not sure if someone mentioned earlier on as a text like nursery rhymes. We perhaps use nursery rhymes, maybe a food poem. Yeah, lots of different topics. We can find any different topic and we can use a very simple poem, and that could help to motivate our students. Poems about all kinds of different areas. Yeah. About colour, about toys, about, oh, a haiku. Great. So we could use a haiku. We could use all kinds of different types of poems, maybe even an acrostic. So we've got our haiku, which is short, 3 lines, traditional type of poem, maybe even an acrostic where we could use the first letter of each line to spell out the word or the topic. We could use all of these different topics that you're suggesting in any of these poems. We've got riddles as well. Okay, I'm going to try one out on you. Here's a riddle for you. What has a mouth but cannot eat? What moves but has no legs? It has a bank but no money. What do you think that is? It's a tricky one. This is not for 5 to 7-year-olds. This is for teachers. It's got a mouth but cannot eat. It moves, but it hasn't got any legs. It's got a bank, but no money. Any idea? A cloud? It's a river. Oh, good job. It's a river. Rivers have banks. It's got a mouth. That was a tricky one, but you did great. Well done. It's a river. So riddles could be another good way of motivating our class. But what I want to look at now is a shape poem. And I think this would fit in very well with lots of the ideas that you've given just here about your fruit and the cloud. All of those things could work very nicely with a shape poem. The one that you can see here is about a snake. So it takes the form of a snake. If we think about the topics that we can cover, there are lots of different simple shapes that we can use. Transport, you suggested transport. We could have a poem in the shape of a car. Maybe clothes, the weather, a poem about a cloud in the shape of a cloud, and of course, food. So the shape poems that are in Give Me 5 Level 3 are all about food. So you can see there are 3 food items here. You can see type 3 if you want to be fast, or I'll just say them. We've got the banana at the top. We've got bread, and we've got the bread. Yep, we've got the banana, and the other one. It's not an apple. It's, hang on. Oh, sorry. It's actually a cherry. It's actually a cherry. It's a big cherry so that we can fit all the text inside it. So we've got the banana, we've got the bread, and we've got the cherry. So what we would do before we read the poems with the class, we would activate any existing knowledge by brainstorming ways to describe all the foods. So we're going to ask the class, what words can you think of to describe a banana? What can you think of to describe a cherry? And what can you think of to describe bread? You can divide the class up into groups if you want to. So one group will be describing the banana, another will be describing the cherry, and another will be describing the bread, or you could just do it collectively as a group. So they might say, right, the banana, well, it's yellow, it's white on the inside, it's long. The cherry, it's sweet, it's small, it's round, it's got a stone in the middle. So now when pupils go and read their poem, they would check through it to see which of their ideas appear in the poem. So this gives them a reason for reading, as well as aiding comprehension. So they've already got an idea of what to expect when they read that poem. After reading the poem, pupils will then work with a partner to look through the poems again and find the key adjectives. So you can see those key adjectives on the left. We've got juicy, sweet, savoury and shiny, and they will go through, find, locate those adjectives and work out the meaning from the context so that they can match them to the definitions on the right. Then pupils would work with a partner again to read the poem again and find the descriptive words in each poem and complete the chart by classifying them. Classifying the adjectives in this way helps to bring order to their thinking so that they can then use that when they move on to writing their own poem. Before thinking and writing about their poem, we want to extend their children's knowledge by relating those adjectives to different food, and we can do that through a game. Now, this game is called Beat the Clock. Children would work cooperatively in groups of 4. If we're working online, this is a great activity to do in a breakout room. So before you open the breakout rooms, you need to give each pupil a role. So if we've got a group of 4, we would number our group from 1 to 4. Number 1s, they could be the timekeepers. They're going to make sure that everybody is on task and they're going to tell everybody how much time is left. Number 2s, those are the scribes. They're in charge of writing down what everyone says or just keeping notes. Number 3s are the speakers. So they would be the ones who would give the feedback to the group if they're called on. And number 4s, this is always my favourite role. Number 4s are the encouragers. They motivate the group to keep on going through the task. So we would set the time limits. If you're working remotely, I would suggest about 5 minutes for everyone to get into their group, to get organised. You can hop in and out of the breakout rooms to make sure that everybody is remaining on task. And then when they all come back into the main room, you can collate all the feedback, making sure that the pupils have focused on different food from the main poem, because we don't want them to write about the banana, the cherry and the bread again. We want them to use what they've learned to write about different food. So they would go through 3 foods that you can peel. Well, it could be maybe a potato, perhaps an orange or an apple. Foods that are soft. They might suggest all different types of food, but they're focusing in their knowledge on these adjectives. Once the pupils are familiar with the format of the shape poem and have extended their thinking in this way, it's time for them to progress to writing their own shape poem. So we would show them another slightly more simple text that they can use as a model for their own written work. In this case, it's another short shape poem, and this time it's about a lollipop. I'm going to read it for you before we move on to that. It's big and round. It's sweet and sticky. It's red and yellow and green. I hold the stick and then I lick it and lick it. My favourite flavour is strawberry. So now pupils have read and analysed 4 different shape poems. It's time to start with their preparation for writing. So in order to write any text, they must be familiar with the key features of each text so that they can use them in their writing. So in this case, pupils are presented with some true or false statements that they can work on with a partner. Shape poems are always the same shape. Oh no. Shape poems have got simple shapes. Yes. They're stories. No, they're not stories. They're descriptions, and shape poems have got lots of adjectives. So working through these key features here. It gives them the criteria that they've got for being able to produce their own poem. So they've got clear now that when they write their poem, it's got to be a simple shape, it should be a description, and it should contain lots of adjectives. Again, they're also given some language tips. This is to help them to be more accurate with their writing. The focus of the shape poems is on adjectives. So we remind our pupils that in English, adjectives don't change. They don't change their ending when we talk about plural objects. So we remind them a lollipop is sweet, cherries are also sweet. Then in the pre-writing stage, pupils brainstorm ideas with a partner before writing the poem. This planning stage, it gives them time to gather their thoughts and share their ideas, in turn building on their confidence. They make notes in the chart, and you can see that the chart is divided up into different sections that we saw before. So this can help them to focus their ideas. When they analysed the other poems, they talked about taste, they talked about size, they talked about colour. All of that knowledge goes into their draft so that when they write about their new food item, they've got all the information here to help them. And then they're going to use those notes to write their own poem. They're given a nice border, they can draw their poem, and they can write their shape poem inside it. Once they've finished, pupils would work cooperatively to check their writing before handing it in. They share their text with each other, and they can compliment each other and be positive, and also decide if it fulfills the criteria. A useful tool that we can use for self-evaluation is a traffic light. So they can get out their traffic lights and they can use it to help them. So we've got their share and check criteria. The shape of the food is simple and clear. They look at their poem. If they feel that they've completed that criteria, they're going to touch that green traffic light. The poem is a description. Did they describe their food? Green light again. Did they use different adjectives? Ooh, not so much. So perhaps the yellow light. This is great for us as teachers because we can watch them as they do that. If we can see that lots of pupils are touching the red light, well, we may need to go back and check the criteria again. If lots of pupils are touching the green light, then we can be confident that they've done a good job on their poems. The final stage in written work is always publishing the piece. It's a nice idea to have pupils copy out their shape poems onto a piece of paper. You can use this as a display if you're in class, or if you're teaching remotely, you could perhaps add them to your Google Classroom or as photos in a blog. Parents love to see their children's work, and here through these poems, they can see not only the language that's being acquired, but also the knowledge of a new genre. We can make use of pupils' digital skills as well by going online and creating and printing further shape poems. This website here, the Read, Write, Think website, offers the opportunity for students to choose a theme that interests them, and then they can write their own poem. So this is something that you could do as an extension, or they could just go away and do as homework or even a project. So there are different topics that pupils can choose from, and then within each topic there's a variety of options. Now I've chosen nature because at school we've been celebrating Tree Day, and so we've got all of these different options with nature, so I chose the tree to talk about Tree Day. So it gives you an image to help out, and then pupils type in different words to do with the tree. So they would brainstorm perhaps with a partner or in a group. The words that I chose, this is one that I did myself just as a demonstration for you. I've chosen some adjectives. I've chosen simple adjectives. I've chosen some more complex adjectives for our higher level learners, and some parts of the tree. So once you've done that part, the program then gives you all the words on one side, and then you write the poem in the tree. It doesn't write the poem for you. So this is actually a poem that I wrote so that you could see as an example. So you've got all your words to choose from, like in a word bank, and then pupils will go ahead and write that poem. Once you've finished, they've got different options. They can print it, they can save it as a draft. If they haven't actually finished, they can save the final, or they can send it through to the teacher. They can print out the copy, they could maybe cut it out and colour it. And again, this is something that makes a very nice display. Now, at the beginning, when we were talking about different genres, we said that variety was good. And you'll probably agree that children are more highly motivated when learning about something that interests them and is presented in a child-friendly format. So let's have a look here at fact cards. Fact cards can be a really useful way of building on pupils' interests. The fact cards that we have in level 2 of Give Me 5 deal with a polar bear and a gorilla. So to begin with, we would ask our pupils in their groups to discuss everything that they already know about gorillas and polar bears. Over to you then. What do you think? What would your class say if you said, right, what do you know about polar bears and gorillas? What type of things would they be able to say? It depends on the age group. They're going to talk about colour. They might talk about colour. The polar bear is white. They might mention size, furry. They might talk about where they live, the habitat. Yes, so they're going to say, well, one lives on the ice. They live in the Arctic. So depending on the age group of our children, they might know lots of different things. They might want to insult each other. We're going to try and avoid that. Children studying science in CLIL programs, they might talk about different body coverings, what they eat and where they live. They might talk about if they're carnivores or if they're herbivores. So we're going to tap into all this by brainstorming. And then once we've done that, we would have a look at the fact cards and see how many of these ideas are in the fact cards. Was there any information that pupils said that isn't in the fact card? Is there anything in the fact card that they didn't mention? Was everything correct? Is there anything there that surprises you? Well, we talked about colour. We talked about where they live. We talked about their hair. They might even mention different body parts. So after reading and again listening to that audio, we can check comprehension before pupils write their own fact card. So this comprehension check has facts taken from the fact cards, and pupils have to decide if it was relevant to the gorilla or to the polar bear. They can use their pupils book, they can go back and refer to that if they can't remember, and then they can go and check. They eat fish and meat. Who was that? I've forgotten. They live on the snow and the ice. Yes, that was the polar bear. So again, they can work together with a partner or do that individually. Before asking pupils to complete their own fact card, again, we could make a collective fact card. We can elicit just one animal, a different animal from the class, and we can choose and describe it together. So pupils are clear what they need to write in each area. Name, maybe we'll choose this time perhaps a lion. Where does it live? Well, it lives in the grasslands. What colour is it? The size, the characteristics, so that pupils are clear about all of these sections before they go away and write about another animal. Once they've chosen their own animal and they've started to write about it, they can use those finished fact cards to encourage different ways of thinking. Joining up with a partner, they can compare the two animals, describing similarities and differences between their own animal and a partner's animal. And we could encourage them to do this through the use of a Venn diagram. This example that you can see here also comes from Give Me 5 Level 2. It's in the same unit as the fact cards so that pupils can use that knowledge. Pupils would go ahead and watch a video about parrots and penguins, consolidate that knowledge, write it into the Venn diagram, and then they can use their own fact card with their partners to join up together and compare those animals. These are some examples that I've done recently with my class. You can see that they've chosen, lots of them chose lions. Lion was the key animal, but they chose a separate animal. We've got parrots, flamingos, koalas, and they compared their animals. If they work together with a partner, this allows them to bounce ideas off each other. It leads to more complex language use. They're required to use sentences rather than just words because they're talking to our partner. And they've also got instant confirmation that they're on track from their partner or from their group. Let's move on. Someone mentioned a quiz earlier on when we talked about different text types, and doing a quiz in class is a great fun way to practice question forms and encourage communication. Sometimes we do different types of quizzes ourselves. What type of quizzes do you do yourselves as people rather than yourselves as teachers? Sometimes we might, if we've got a spare 5 minutes, do a quiz. When we were in lockdown, we had plenty of free time to go on Facebook and see what type of Disney princess we are, or which Hogwarts house are you? Do you do maybe some crosswords, but a bit more intellectual? Yes, that's a bit better than which Disney princess are you? And in the class, we might do different types of quizzes that can motivate and encourage our class. Scramble, yes, as well. These are any kinds of good word games to keep ourselves active. The quiz that we include in Give Me 5 Level 3 is about fitness and health. All the questions are in the present simple, and we're also practicing use of adverbs of frequency here as well. So we would allow the class to work with a partner to ask and answer the questions in the quiz. And then once they've done that, they can check the results at the bottom to see how healthy they are. But before we go on to ask the children to write their own quiz, we can start off by practicing question forms through a game. So we can elicit, maybe we just start off with just one question word, what? We would elicit from the class different questions that they can ask using the word what. What's your name? What's your favourite colour? What's your favourite fruit? And then we can build to different question words. We've got all the WH question words. We can elicit different ways from our class of how to ask questions. And then we could perhaps put them in groups and encourage them to write a number of questions, maybe between 5 and 10 questions per group. So ideally, I would ask you to think up some questions, and then I would choose one of you to sit on the hot seat in the middle of the room, and we'd all have great fun asking questions. But unfortunately, I'm not actually there with you today. So there's no one on the hot seat. But this is an activity that works well remotely as well. We just choose one of our participants in the class, and perhaps we would not call it the hot seat, but the hot camera. And one child will be chosen to answer the questions that their colleagues have written. We can do this in breakout rooms as well. We could perhaps send the class into breakout rooms to write the questions in one group, and then mix those groups up so that the pupils have got different questions from different groups and take turns to ask one of their partners. So once we've worked on all of these different questions, we would then write the draft. We want pupils to ask each other questions about healthy living. So we'll be looking at questions with do you and maybe how often do you, because we've been working on adjectives of frequency, adverbs of frequency, sorry. So our pupils would go ahead and write the draft with these questions, and then they would complete their own quiz that they can ask and answer with each other. The next genre that I want to have a look at is a recipe. This recipe is from Give Me 5 Level 2, and this type of text lays the groundwork for the skill of using digital recipes online. An opening activity that we can do is a cooperative jigsaw task where we can brainstorm different food in groups. Four Corners is an activity that gives less confident learners the opportunity to hear ideas and then share them as their own, sort of a magpie technique, if you like. And in this example, we're going to brainstorm food for the recipe. We would divide the class into groups of 4 and number the children in each group from 1 to 4. Number ones would group together either in one corner of the classroom, not too close, or in a breakout room, and they would all be brainstorming fruit. Number 2s would be brainstorming vegetables, 3s desserts, and 4s they're all going to brainstorm drinks. So what we've got here is a child who perhaps initially may not be able to think of a fruit, or perhaps just 1 or 2. They've got the opportunity now to listen to all their classmates naming different fruit. So when they return to the main group, they can relay this information, which gives them the opportunity to participate in the discussion actively rather than just passively. So we will set a time limit, perhaps about a minute for this activity, send them off into their breakout rooms. You can type in and say, oh, only 30 seconds left. And then once the time is over, everyone comes back together and we can share the information collectively. So once everyone's tuned in to the idea that we're going to be talking about food, we can say we're going to be talking about a special sandwich. And we could perhaps personalise by asking the class, what's your favourite sandwich? This is actually a funny face sandwich. So we would show the photo of the funny face sandwich to the class, and then we would ask the class to name the ingredients. So have a quick look at this sandwich here, and what ingredients do you think we need to make this sandwich? What can you see? Well, obviously we've got our bread, we've got some egg for the eyes. Yep, we've got cheese, we've got the bread, we've got some olives. Yep, anything else? What about the hair? We've got a bit of lettuce or salad there for the hair, that's right. So we'd ask the class to have a look at it and name the items, and then we would check that. So we've got all of those items. We've actually got a little bit of carrot there for the mouth as well. So we would show the ingredients and check with our class. And then the pupils would read the model recipe, and they're going to complete a comprehension check matching the illustrations to the instructions. And so we haven't actually got that here for you to see today, but the children would match their illustrations to the instructions and also put that in order. And then they would go ahead and write some recipes of their own. Now you can see here that these are some recipes that children in my class have written. We've copied it out onto paper with some minimal help so that they could write their own instructions. And in fact, this year, what we actually did was, because we've been working at home quite a lot and forming links with the parents, I asked the children to use their recipe to make their own sandwiches. So they made sandwiches. Some of them sent me through different photos of the sandwiches, and some of them showed me the photo of the empty plate when they'd actually eaten their sandwich. So a recipe is another useful thing that we can do with this age group. And then another text that some of you mentioned early on is the postcard. This is a really useful text type that we can use because our pupils may have received a postcard. They may have sent one to family members when they're away on holiday. And this postcard is from Give Me 5 Level 1. So first of all, pupils would look at the image and then describe it. We would structure the language that we want them to use and ask them to talk about what they can see using there is, there are, there isn't, or there aren't. So once the pupils have described the postcard, they would then read through the text. Again, audio is going to help. So they would read and listen to that text at the same time. We can also point out here the main features of the postcard. We always start off with dear, and we end up with the name, and then the name and address of the recipient is on the other side. So pupils can see the type of thing that appears in the postcard. After reading the postcard, we will do our usual comprehension check, perhaps simple questions. Where is Sue? Or some true or false statements. The weather is cold and windy. No, that's false. It's hot and sunny. Once we've checked comprehension, pupils will then write their own postcard. Now, we said this is level 1, so our children are 5 or 6, so it's very structured and their choices are limited. So pupils would then just choose from the word bank one of the options and complete their own postcard. But once we've done that and the pupils are clear about the format and they've completed this very guided version of the postcard, we can give them a bit more freedom and encourage them to write their own postcard. In this example that you can see here, I've chosen just 3 main areas: place, action, and of course weather. We always talk about the weather in our postcards. So there's some scaffolding. We've got the structure is scaffolded, dear mum and dad or whoever, I am at the, and then we brainstorm different places. I stuck all the places into the blue sack. What can you do in those places? We brainstormed different actions and stuck all the actions into the yellow sack. And then we brainstormed the weather and that all went into the red sack. With younger learners, this type of classification can help them when they're writing their own postcard, so that they're choosing from the right place and the structure of their postcard is correct. We then went on and wrote the postcards. Now, these are some that we did in class. I also did this work on postcards this year online when we were in lockdown. But it was more difficult because we couldn't actually put up those sacks. So what I did was I created the word banks and I put them on my blog. There's a link at the end if any of you are interested in having a look at the blog. So first of all, we said, right, we're going to write about postcards today. Choose a different place. So they were given different places to choose from. We also looked at the weather and the different activities. We brainstormed that in our live session when we were working with Google Meet, and then I took those ideas and put them on the blog. This helped the pupils to write their postcard at home because obviously as a teacher we're not there with them to help them. Some of the parents were able to give support, but not all. So this gave that much needed extra support. To end with, we're going to have a look at an activity that can serve as a link from school to home, perhaps in celebration of World Book Day. This can also serve as a way to give less communicative children a chance to come into their own through role play. They can role play an adventure story. One or two of you mentioned adventure stories at the beginning as a way of motivating our children. And I think that adventure stories can be very motivating for this age group, or for any age group, to be honest. So we start off by just showing some images and asking the children to decide which of these things we would normally be able to see in an adventure story. Well, there's usually a hero, There's almost definitely a secret passage. Mum and dad, oh, not so much. They probably stay at home. So we're using this as well to introduce some vocabulary that might be in our story. Secret passage, an old bridge, a dark cave. Maybe there's a monkey, maybe not. I don't know. Let's wait and see. So the adventure story that I'm going to, I'm going to act it out for you so that you can see it. The adventure story is part of a series called The Adventures of Adam Jones. So we said that it's a good idea to act out this story because any children that might not be so confident to produce language, they'll certainly feel like joining in when acting out the story. And a few well-placed props might help. So, The Adventures of Adam Jones, as brought to you today online in Asia. Adam Jones is walking along a beach. He finds an old map in the sand. He sails across the lake in his boat. He crosses an old rope bridge. Whoa, it's very, very wobbly. He isn't afraid of the dark cave. There's a secret passage. Mummies and ghosts chase Adam. At last, he escapes. There are giant spiders. Oh, Adam shines his torch and the spiders run away. Finally, he finds the treasure and another map. Dun, dun, dun. So, the story continues. So, obviously, it's not ideal for the teacher to act out the story themselves, but it's giving you a good idea of something that we can do. We could get all our pupils, even if we're online, I think that you could get them to maybe find a hat or a torch, draw a few spiders and ghosts, and act out that story, even if we're not there with them. The story itself is presented in Give Me 5 in cartoon format, and the children can take turns to read and act out that story, even if we're working remotely. And then we can use that theme of adventure stories when we celebrate World Book Day, encouraging our pupils to write their own story, a very simple story. Once again, you can see that they're given support. We could perhaps use that idea of word sacks to brainstorm. I cross, what can you cross? A bridge, a road, a river, a lake. I climb, what can we climb? A tree, a mountain, and brainstorm ideas and then have our pupils write that story. First of all, write it, then illustrate it and take it home to link with their parents. So in using different text types as a basis for our lessons, you can see the ones that we've looked at here today. We can build on all 4 language skills, introducing and extending different types of skills, and so bringing our learners and our classrooms bang up to date. Now, that's all that I've got for you today. I hope that you have enjoyed the session, and if you have any questions, I think we've got a few moments left.
Yes,
questions.
Thank you very much, Joe. That was a really, really great session. I've just going back to the last thing you were talking about, and everybody loves an adventure story. Actually, at the moment, I'm reading The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which is brought it all back to me. So yeah, you're right. Everybody does love an adventure story. I too love poems. So when you started with the poems and we're talking about those, really brilliant ideas that I am sure people can take away, and a lot of love coming in the chat, particularly with you telling your story as well. I'd love to be in your class, says Francis. So I think you really wowed them. So thank you so much. Now, we've got some questions that came in, and we have got a few minutes. So let me just go back to my notes. So Mung Srinich from Cambodia has said, what is the age group of children to start writing the poems?
Well, those poems, I would start, it depends on the complexity of the poem. The shape poems that we looked at, those were for level 3. So we're looking at 8, 9-year-olds. The ball poem was in level 2. So those children will be 7 to 8. I think you can start even early if you want to, but you would need to provide a little more structure, a little more scaffolding, and choose the topic carefully. So as long as you are working on something very simple and you've brainstormed all the ideas together, and with younger children, you perhaps want to use more word banks so that pupils can see spelling of those words, then you can start as young as 5 or 6.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And yeah, I mean, I think poems are really, really great, particularly for creativity. And we know children have lots of creativity and imagination, and they're really wonderful for bringing that out. So yeah, like you say, with that scaffolding, there's no reason why you can't start early. And then one more question. There's actually 2, but I'm going to pass one question over to John. We've got John Cruft, who's going to be coming in a moment and also doing a Q&A session. And I'll pass that on to him. But Kunthia, hi Kunthia in Cambodia. She said, recently we're teaching online classes for kids, and it's extremely difficult. What are your techniques to teach kids effectively? Now, that's quite a large question, so maybe if you want to look at some of the points that you've spoken about today and how you would do that online.
Well, teaching online, I think it's important to keep it as active and participative as possible. Make sure that everybody's joining in, they've all got their cameras on, and lots of action. So if they can demonstrate that they're understanding by joining in with some actions, perhaps playing some stand up and sit down games, pointing to the left and the right, so that everybody's, you can check it. It's much more difficult to make sure that everybody's focused teaching remotely than online. There's in fact, Macmillan produced a series of short videos that are available in the YouTube channel. If you can find the link, that there's about 5 or 6 that I did. There are some about playing games. There are some about stories. Yeah, keeping it as active as possible.
Yeah, we actually promoted those yesterday. Actually, you were part of the session yesterday. John had mentioned those, so maybe Daisy has got a link to that, and we'll put that in the chat later as well. They're really wonderful. Thank you. All right, well, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time, Joe, today. It's been really great to see you again, and really great to listen to what you have to say. I think, like I said, I think everybody's got something practical from that they can use in their classroom, which is really great. So thank you so much. Everybody,
thanks very much for having me.
You're very much welcome. So everybody else, please stay where you are, because we do have John coming up in a moment. But I do have a bit of housekeeping just to tell you about. So as we mentioned earlier, you will receive a certificate for today's sessions. At the end of the session, the certificate will be sent to you automatically, but please be patient and do check your spam folder for your certificates as well. If you are interested in developing your attitude, skills and knowledge further, we're very pleased to announce that we are launching 2 really amazing campaigns for pre-primary and teenage teachers, that being teachers who are teaching teenagers. So firstly, we have the Hop on the Learning Wheel with Carol Reed, which I'm sure you all know and love Carol. She's done lots of webinars and presentations for us recently, and has this wonderful series of, or this wonderful course called Ferris Wheel. There's lots of resources and ideas just for you if you're teaching at this level. And we also have, secondly, we have Teach with Dave, run by Dave Spencer. And Dave, as you will all know, is a world-renowned secondary author. And he invites you to attend his masterclasses. So please, please, please have a look at those and develop your attitude, skills, and knowledge. Take them to the next level. Don't forget also to follow us on Facebook. If you're in Asia, if you're in China, you can follow us on WeChat, where you will receive information and details about upcoming webinars and sessions that we're running. And one of those sessions I want to remind you about is happening next Wednesday, where we have Nick Bear, who's going to be developing a sharing attitude in the classroom and what skills the teachers need for this. So we all recognize that sharing is caring, and Nick will be taking us through that. So please register online at the link in the chat box that Daisy has put in there. And also, now we can see John's coming. So while I introduce John Cruft to us all, our wonderful professional development manager, he's there now for Macmillan Education. While I introduce John to you, can you all take a moment to give us some feedback? We recognize feedback is so important to us. We want to get better. We want to develop. So please, please, while I tell you all about John, or John tells us all about himself, please continue to do the survey. So, hi, John. How are you?
Del, I'm very good. We should stop meeting like this. It's
I
becoming
know.
a regular thing.
I wish we could meet face to face. It would be. I can't wait until we do that. It's been so long.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? And I enjoyed Joe's session, and it's so nice to have an author who's written a book and is actually using the book as well, isn't it? It's fantastic, and
can exemplify exactly what she's telling us about what she's done in the classroom, and here's the material that the kids have produced. It's really great and really powerful. I think a really good tool to use.
Yeah, I forgot to ask her what kind of collaborative online platform she would have used for her online teaching there in Spain to share the students' work and things like that. And I know you've used a lot things like Padlet, right? Padlet.com. Padlet's a great way of sort of sharing all the students' work, isn't it, on a collaborative board and things like that. And but I'm sure we'll have lots more questions coming in. And I guess the role of this next kind of 20-30 minutes is to extend the Q&A with a particular focus on primary. If there are pre-primary teachers there, I'm very happy to answer some pre-primary questions as well. Teenage and young adults, we're going to leave for next week. So Del is going to be doing a Q&A next week, right, Del?
Yeah, we'll be kind of swapping roles, where John's going to be the host and I'll be answering questions about teenagers and adults. Yeah, so today John's going to be taking you through the primary and, as he said, pre-primary as well. So John, do you want to get started? I mean, should we just tell people a little bit about who you are, and in case we've got some new people arriving. So John is John, if you don't know, John is actually my boss. We work very closely together. I'm very lucky to have someone as experienced as John. So 18 years, right, John, as a teacher and teacher trainer. How long have you been in your role as a teacher trainer and professional development manager now?
I started training or giving in-house training when I was in Vietnam, probably back in around 2007. And so I was a teacher up until then.
Were you delivering training as a teacher as well, as your role as a teacher? Did you kind of dip into it to develop?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I played one of those kind of roles where you were like a senior teacher or an academic coordinator. So 50% of the time you were teaching, and sort of 50% of the time you spent sort of onboarding new teachers and also designing and delivering ongoing in-house sort of training for the teachers as well.
Excellent. Okay. And you, in terms of countries, you've worked in 6 Asian countries: China, Malaysia, Vietnam, Nepal, Thailand. What was the other one?
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. What's
highly recommended.
What was the best country, John?
Can't answer that. I can't answer that. I would take different parts of all of those countries to make one super country. I think.
Okay, right. Oh,
I would take the Thai street food from your country, Dale. Yeah.
Lovely. All right. So I mean, a vast experience of teacher training, of being in the classroom. So I'm just going to pass it over to you now. Please, everybody, throw John your questions in the chat box, and I'll try and help manage any questions as well. So good luck with the session, and I'll see you all just to finish later on.
Thanks very much, Dale. So as Dale said, we're going to sort of focus on primary. If you're sitting comfortably, maybe you got your dinner or a cup of tea, hopefully you're nice and sort of relaxed. And if there's any pressing questions that you have, maybe as a result of Joe's session today, got you thinking a bit, or any other kind of challenges that you're having with primary level teaching, maybe you're teaching like online still, or even face-to-face. If you need any advice with courses, or where you find extra resources for your learners, or course book advice, then please let me know. Our first question here: what individual group activities can be used to develop vocabulary or writing? Okay. I'm not sure whether that's an online or a face-to-face. In terms of group writing, I will take that one. And collaborative group writing in a face-to-face setting first can be a very, very powerful process, but you would need a very strong sort of scaffolded approach, right? So you'd need to make sure that they had the particular vocabulary they needed for that writing activity. They had the particular maybe sub-skill that they were practicing for that task. I would get them in groups, brainstorming activities for maybe the question that they need to answer, or the topic that they were writing about. Get them to collaboratively brainstorm. They can do that with post-it notes, or use the board, or different areas of the classroom. I would have a chance for a first draft of the writing as well, with some peer or group checking. Give them a little checklist that they can work together collaboratively to check that they've covered all the elements that you asked for the writing task. If you're teaching face-to-face, you could post those around the classroom, and they can wander around reading them. Give them a task as they are reading them to give each other sort of feedback, or vote on their favorite, these kind of things, to really bring the writing out. If you're teaching online, obviously working collaboratively in the classroom is a little bit different, but there's no reason why you still can't get them maybe working in breakout rooms, having a brainstorm discussion. Give them some time, individual time during the class online to write it. If you've got a shared platform with your school, or maybe use Facebook or Padlet, as I mentioned, I'll write that in the box now. You could use that, and they could upload their writing onto a shared online collaborative platform. And again, students can go on there and comment and give feedback as well, or vote on their favorite. All right. What else have we got? Okay. Parents. Okay. So how can we stop parents from whispering answers and words to help their kids during online classes? They're not letting their kids thinking for themselves. I already remind them gently, but they keep spoon feeding their kids. That's a tricky one, isn't it? Particularly if you've reminded them as well. And I was thinking for online classes, setting very clear boundaries and rules for students, but also parents as well. I guess in when it comes down to it, you can't, stop them, right? You're not there to stop them. So, I mean, all you can do is sort of politely ask them. Do you have, I wonder if you have some schools I know have chats or direct communication with the parents. Some do, some don't. So again, if you can have sort of an ongoing communication with parents and let them know the reasons why it's better for students to think for themselves, then that could help as well. But super tricky. And yeah, let me give that a little bit more thought. And if you've had that same experience, maybe you could help our teacher here as well. Maybe you could post your ideas to help me answer that one as well. And maybe we can come back to that one when we've got a few more ideas coming in as well. Okay, from Rei Chao Huang in China. I have a question for you about developing literacy for primary students. Usually we'll have mixed ability classes. Do you have any suggestions on teaching literacy for mixed ability students? Good question. I would say a few things that come to mind. I would say a lot of course books now would have inside their teaching resources mixed ability ideas for different skills. They might have additional writing task sheets, but these writing task sheets would be at different levels. So you'd have a standard, you would have a challenge and a basic, depending on the level of your student. And you can give a different level of worksheet to different level of students inside of your classroom. In terms of literacy as well, when we've got reading, when we've got those poems, maybe we can separate or group the students into different abilities, and they can be working on different level of task as well. So I would suggest when you're planning your lessons, to think about the students in your class as individuals and their learning needs. Not every student is the same, right, in terms of their ability. So think about when you're doing a reading or have a task, can you set up the original task, but can you create a slightly easier task as well, and a slightly more challenging task, maybe some additional questions or something like that go with the reading to challenge those with a higher ability, but at the same time maybe you have a task of slightly lower challenge as well for those who are a little bit behind. Okay, so think about that during your planning. And I know Jo's course, so she authored Give Me 5, and I know that course has a lot of ideas in the lesson plans and the teacher's guide about how to address mixed abilities in the classroom. And another idea when we're talking about teaching the individual, I saw a lovely idea and by a teacher who had like a printout of all the students in their class, and each lesson they would think about one student for that lesson, and they would plan the lesson for that student at their level. The next class, they would move on to the next student or choose a different student, and they would think about that student as they planned the class. And that would mean that all your classes will have a flavor of different individual students as they go through. Okay. Again, do check our Macmillan Education Asia website. Check the macmillanenglish.com website as well. We've got blogs and videos, podcasts. Some of those deal with classroom management, for example, mixed ability. So I'm sure we're going to get some links put in the chat there as well that you guys can follow up and check out a little bit later. Right, so leading on from mixed ability, a nice question again on the lines of classroom management. How to implement classroom management during online classes? And I'm sure this is probably the #1 challenge that many of us are having. So great question, Rafi. And when I'm thinking about online classes, I would, in terms of the lesson planning, I would approach the planning in exactly the same way as a face-to-face class. So, for example, I would check the lesson plan, for example, in the teacher's guide, And as you're going through that lesson plan, you have to say to yourself, okay, what's going to work with a face-to-face class? What isn't going to work online? And then have to tweak slightly your lesson plan. So that'll be your sort of first point. I would say in terms of catching their attention and behavior management on class, you have, like a face-to-face class, the same principles apply. You have to keep a nice flow to the class, maybe with short activities, with a nice quick transition between activities to hold their attention. If you're fiddling around and it's taking too much time to transition between activities, then you might lose their attention. And again, that will come down to your lesson planning, and maybe before the class, maybe practicing those transitions. So, okay, I've got a lead-in activity. I've got a song. I've got a video here. I've got to use a breakout room for a little speaking task. So maybe just going through that, practicing those transitions first, thinking about how you're going to do that, will really help you hold their attention during the class. Classroom management is so big. We've got mixed abilities, we've got behavior management, we've got grouping and selecting of students, we've got instructions. It's so big as well. But let me try and pick out a few other areas of classroom management. I'm thinking about selecting students to feedback or answer a question, for example, or present back something to the class. How do you do that? Again, that's under classroom management. Think about being a little bit fun and engaging with that. There's a lovely online name selector called Wheel Decide. I think if I put that in the chat, maybe Del can help me put that in the chat. A Wheel Decide website where you can put the names of the students into this wheel, and then you can spin the wheel live in the class, and it will slowly stop on a student's name, and that student has to answer the question. Okay, or you might, for example, have all the students' names and pictures on lollipop sticks, little ice cream sticks in a little cup, and you would pick a student's name from the cup to answer that question. So little things like this all are all important to the management of the class. I would say also for classroom management, I could keep going a long time on this. In terms of classroom management, have your resources ready to go. Think about visuals. Visuals will help. Joe showed you using different realia and puppets to tell stories, or for vocabulary, realia for vocabulary, flashcards, for example. Puppets work very well for doing conversations with yourself. So you could be partner A and partner B at the same time, and your students could make their own puppets or finger puppets for doing basic role plays or basic conversations or dialogue. So having your resources, maybe having students making them before class to save you time. This all comes into your classroom management, doesn't it? So such a big area, isn't it? But it all is integrated into classroom management. And again, I'll show you a little bit later some more resources that we have for mixed abilities, for classroom management and online classes. Let's have a look. What have I missed? Let's go back up. So we had the parents question. Okay. Maybe as some more questions are coming through, let me just sort of move on a little bit as well. We talked a little bit about yesterday, actually, for those who came to the session. We talked about attitude, skills, and knowledge. If there's anything there as well which may spark some interest. Okay, we've got another question coming in from Enli Mulia. Is there a certain number of words in composing of a paragraph based on the age of the students or based on the grades? Wow, I guess that would be probably more of a question for the author, if I've got this right. But when they are writing books, they would write, for example, a paragraph or a text, right, for a unit. The author would do that, and they have a particular platform that they feed the text through, and they would tell the author whether the words and the word count are at the right level that they are writing for. So that's a very kind of complex process, but there is like software that they use for that, to make sure that they are writing text with the right amount of words for that level. But in general, throughout the levels of a 6-level course, you'll find the word count in the texts will gradually increase, right? But between the different levels. Yeah, Dale has mentioned lexile.com as well. That will be very helpful, Dale. Thank you very much for that one. I'm just thinking about classroom management and the questions that came in there. And this is my first class that I ever taught after I did my CELTA training. So those of you who know CELTA, it's a certificate for English language teaching for adults. And obviously you go through the process of how to teach, and you learn a lot about the methodologies and things like that. But my first class, there was 120 what were they, kind of 12, 13-year-old students. Although the one at the front on the right, he's got a full-on beard, so he may be older than 12. Maybe he failed a few years. But, having to try and manage a class of 120 students was obviously a good starting point for me. It got much easier after that. And I'm sure you've all had your own challenges in your classrooms as well. But I think this whole time of teaching online, we are learning skills we would never have done if it wasn't for this situation about how to teach mixed abilities online, how to teach online in general. It's we're broadening our skill set, aren't we? And you have to be positive, don't you? You have to be positive and take on the challenge of that skill set, don't we? Otherwise, it can be a extremely miserable time, can't it, for us as teachers? Let me try and find those additional resources. Yes. So these ones may be helpful. So those who weren't here yesterday, so there are some lovely tips here from our macmillanenglish.com websites about digital teaching skills, teaching young learners online. That's with Jo. Again, she's got some lovely videos there on the Macmillan English YouTube as well. Macmillan English YouTube, for those who have access to YouTube. There are some other videos there for those who are teaching of teens, engaging them online, if you're moving your school online. And this one by Laura Patsko as well. Online lessons that are active and interactive. Check out that one. That's a really nice session by Laura Patsko. So do go on there, and you have to sort of read, don't you? You have to read blogs, articles, watch videos, watch webinars like this. It's a constant process of upgrading your skills. And maybe as soon as you think that you've got your online learning and teaching perfect, other challenges come up, and we've got to start reading and learning again. So keep going, keep reading and learning. And what I would say, that even with the challenges, after this last 1 or 2 years, you guys are going to be so highly employable. It's going to be amazing for you with that kind of skill set to be able to deliver online classes, design your own online materials and all that kind of stuff. It's going to make you highly employable in the future. So always think about those positives as well as you are teaching. Right. Let me know if I've missed any questions, Del, as well, as we go through. A few other little useful sites as well for those, again, maybe that weren't with us yesterday. And there's some great remote teaching tips. This one by the British Council is a great PDF you can download, similar to the Macmillan things that I showed you as well. Some additional ideas. Edutopia, another great site as well. A lot of their materials come from the US, again, who are all teaching online at the moment, I believe. So lots of great ideas there, from better breakout rooms, using videos when you have online classes. Just keep reading. And again, if you need more support, get in touch with your local Macmillan representative in your country. We have fully flexible courses. So fully flexible, by that I mean they are flexible in terms of you can teach them face-to-face, you can teach them 100% online. So they have digital student book with all the digital resources. All you need to do is kind of click onto the next page, or click the audio and it will play the song, or click the vocab and it will show the flashcards. Maybe there's interactive games already integrated on those resources as well, and it's just super easy to click through your lesson plan, and your students to follow through. So we have loads of our courses now, from pre-primary all the way up to young adults, which are fully flexible as well. So do get in touch with your local team if you want more information. Probably teaching online, the first thing to think about is your resources, right, and your planning. And if you've got a good course and a good resources, that will make your life so much easier. Okay, so do get in touch with us if you have any questions about that. Again, I showed this one yesterday for those who were with us. I'll just sort of show it again, but some of you were talking about online classes, how to engage. These ones are ready-made Kahoots, which are online quizzes, right, that you can do with your students for different levels, for different topics that you could use at the start of the class, the end of class, during class. And I'm sure lots of these topics here you can find for your right level. So we have pre-A1 colors, for example, or A2 vocabulary animals, for example. Okay, so lots of quizzes already made there, and you can find that those again on the macmillanenglish.com website there. Okay. So I think probably the biggest challenge is how there's so much stuff out there, isn't there? And how to get through that maze of information and find the right stuff that's useful for you and your class. I tend to use maybe 3, 4, 5 key websites like the ones that I'm showing you. They're my go-to ones. And every kind of week or so, maybe you can explore a different website and build up that way. Okay. Okay. Another question. How can we get young learners speaking and not worry too much about making mistakes? Absolutely. I'm thinking from my perspective, I'm trying to learn Chinese at the moment. And I would say making mistakes is probably the best way to remember, not to make that mistake again, but also, reflect on that mistake and learn from that error. So we have to make that, the first step would be to have that environment in the classroom where mistakes are not a negative thing, right? That should be part of your positive classroom environment that you teach your students from the start. So teaching them maybe not to laugh at other students who've made a mistake. That would be sort of one key area. Lots of encouragement for students. Maybe encourage other students to help other students in the class as well. Let me just read that question again. Okay. In that sense, I would also set up what we would call fluency, lots more fluency activities, where the aim is just to get out the language or the target language for the lesson. It doesn't matter too much about the accuracy with those activities. It's just a matter of just getting them speaking. So little activities where, speak for 20 seconds on a topic, or say as many words as you can on a topic for 30 seconds. Anything like that, which encourages kind of fluency in the classroom. But also you want that balance, right, between fluency and accuracy. And there's a lovely webinar actually on our Macmillan English website by the author of Share It, Nick, who does a lovely session called the fluency and accuracy, or the balance between fluency and accuracy. Okay, but by setting up fluency activities, you can Google those in your own time as well. Search around, good top 10 fluency activities for young learners. You'll find lots of activities, and try using those what we call fluency activities, where the focus is not on accuracy and being correct all the time. Okay, but try and have that kind of balance. Okay. All right. Okay, let's just check. I haven't missed any other questions. That's a good one. We've got a question with she's just picking up what I've said. And actually, Dell is very good on this one, actually, talking about the difference here. Values, lessons, mistakes are okay to be made. Personally, I would use the word error instead of mistakes with young learners. Yeah, and we can probably differentiate between sort of errors and mistakes and slips as well. And that may be one area to look up as well, the difference between errors, mistakes, and kind of slips as well. But I like that idea of building mistakes and errors and how we address that into your values or socio-emotional learning or positive learning lessons, right, where we teach them all about that, and it's okay to make mistakes and errors. Okay, I make mistakes all the time when I'm sleepy. And Dell's posted a blog there of a wonderful blog actually about error correction, so do look at that one as well. It's a brilliant one. All right, Mr. Dell, shall we wrap this one up? I think I've got a couple of other resources to show here. Again, all these come from macmillanenglish.com websites. There's some wonderful blogs here, additional blogs, and games in the classroom, and loads of great stuff there as well for the teachers out there that may be useful based on what they heard today. Again, check out our Macmillan Asia YouTube sites as well. There's some great videos that are made with some colleagues. Again, this one was engaging students, primary students, with reading. So even if you're teaching a reading lesson online, you can still engage the student at the other end. So this one, the students were reading about koala bears in Australia, and the teacher before the class got the students to make koala bears, and they got to cut out the mouth of the koala. And as they were reading the text, even if they were reading, at home, following the teacher, teaching online, they could actually follow the text through the mouth of the koala bear. It's just a little bit more interesting, isn't it, than just reading maybe a text, I don't know, with your finger, or reading it from the screen from the teacher. It's more kind of physical, isn't it? And that's just one way that you could sort of adapt maybe to online teaching. Okay, and there's a link there to those videos on our Macmillan Asia website. Okay. Good. And if you come from any of these countries, today we got some lovely specials, Dale, that we recorded, didn't we, before, from Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia, some brilliant, well, I can't say brilliant podcasts, but I can't really say that our own podcasts. I'll make you guys make that decision, but there's Dale's blog about error correction there, and we got podcasts, blogs about mixed abilities and other questions that you asked us today. Okay.
Oopsie daisy. I think I just clicked ahead then, didn't I?
No, that was me.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to leave you to finish up then, Dale.
Okay, thank you. So where's there should be a slide with a thank you though, shouldn't there? Is it there?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. So yeah, thanks so much, John. That was great. I thought you had some very interesting, difficult questions to answer, which I think you handled very, very well. I hope I get some easier questions for my session, which will be coming up later, which I'm going to tell you about. Please don't forget your certificates will be sent to you at the end of the session. And please don't forget to register for our upcoming sessions next week, same time, same place. So we have a session on Wednesday, which is Nick Bear, the author of one of the authors of Share It, who will be talking about a sharing attitude in the classroom. And then on Thursday, we have Rona Snelling, who will be talking about starting the language learner's journey, the knowledge and teaching skills required for lower levels. And we'll be dealing with mainly young adult and adult learners. And then I will follow that with a Q&A session as well. So please register, and we look forward to seeing you again. The last 2 days have been great. We've had a lot of engagement with you, and it's really, really great to see you commenting and putting your thoughts and questions in the chat box. So please continue to do that, and we look forward to seeing you next week. John, would you like to say anything to say goodbye?
No, thanks for stopping by, Asia, and it's brilliant to see you. Good luck, stay positive, and good luck with all your teaching. And I was going to ask you, what's for dinner, Del?
I'm actually I had lunch and breakfast today, so I'm skipping dinner. So
no.
How about you? What are you having for dinner?
I don't know yet. I'm not quite sure. I'll find something on the way home, hopefully. Yeah.
I did see one of our lovely colleagues from Jakarta, Celestine's, in the session today, and it really got me thinking about beef rendang. And so yeah, anybody in Jakarta, please have a beef rendang either this evening or tomorrow, and think of me. Beef rendang or soto ayam, a lovely kind of chicken soup there. A gado, yeah. Oh, fan, or some pho bò from Vietnam. Anything, yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Take care, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.